Okay, I'm going to call to order a special meeting of the Two Harbors City Council for October 4th, 2021. I have to stop and think, sorry. We'll do a brief roll call, please.
Woodruff. Blosher.
Here.
Renwald.
Here.
Swanson.
Here.
Passy.
Here.
Erickson. Redden.
And then pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On behalf of the city, I would just like to welcome Congressman Stoddard, and we're just gonna turn it over to you and let you tell us everything that's new and exciting in Washington and what you can help us with up in Two Harbors.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be with you all today. Mayor, thanks for the invite. We've been trying to have this meeting for some time. I think that if you look at the opportunities that Two Harbors has right now, they're really unlimited. We talked a couple of years ago on the wastewater treatment facility and the opportunity to expand recreation and tourism. We're going all the way up the North Shore, up to the Gunflint today, and the beauty of the color change is just unbelievable in northern Minnesota. One of the things I try to tell my colleagues in Congress is some of them are in metro or urban areas. They don't see what we see. They don't go to the banks of the Knife River and Restoration Park to see how awesome it is. So that's what we have to fight for. We have to fight for that, and it gives us an opportunity to educate what matters and what we do for recreation and what we do for business, what we do for expansion. And Two Harbors is on the edge of doing some really good things. And I understand you need the funding, I get it. And that's what we're pushing for. Just so you know, this project was one of my top priority community funded projects that I put forward, along with Highway 8 in Chicago County. So these two projects were the two that rose to the top. Not only because it was right, but because of the communities behind it. Your citizens are behind it, the chamber is behind it, and other businesses are behind it. Because when we can do that, you can expand greatly in your tax base, bringing more industry, more people to Two Harbors, and when you do that, you have more young kids in our schools, more opportunities, and so that's why I wanted to come today to talk about the abilities that we have. And right now, just so you know, it was a $10 million request, and it's at 3.5. It has made it through the first cut, and towards the end of the year we'll know. It's I'll just say this: in government, when there's an investment, you have to continue the investment until the project's complete, because there's been projects that have been almost completed, then for some reason. Political change, they just stop the project. And one of those that will affect Two Harbors is the SULOCs. Extremely important that we continue to fund the SULOCs. And that's been a project for a lot of years. Until that first 1,000-foot breaker goes through that new pole lot, we are not going to sit back. That investment's going to grow and grow and grow until it's completed. And we'll work with the Corps of Engineers to do that. So. Locally working with MnDOT, the Corps of Engineers, and our local elected officials, it's been very, very successful in our district. Because at one point I sat in the city council chambers, I understand it, and of course the county commissioner chambers. One of the things I'm very, that I watched very closely coming out of the nation's capital is unfunded mandates. Because when there's an unfunded mandate that comes down from the federal government or the state government, many times the only option is to increase the property taxes, and that's difficult to do. So I'm looking forward to our discussion, talking to you about the investments that we have, and the opportunities for Two Harbors to grow. And I think once we get this wastewater treatment facility there, you and the councilors have got a lot of good, important decisions to make on the expansion, because people will be coming here. And to make sure that any discharge is as clean as it can possibly be. And so, and that goes, it didn't just come as happenstance. We've been talking about this for a couple of years now, to be able to work this project. And And of course, our two US senators are critical as well. We've talked to our senators the importance of this, so we want to keep it in there, and if both the House and the Senate keep it in there, it should look good. But that remains to be seen until the end of the year when the appropriations are balanced. With that being said, I think that I also want to even touch on some of the things that are going on in our nation's capital. Of course, we have a T&I bill, the biggest, most historic T&I bill that we've ever had, and also a reconciliation. Those are one package that are going through, and there's a really good debate in our nation's capital, the good, the bad, the difference on them. So we'll see. We were supposed to vote on those last week, but they're still in negotiations. So until it comes to actually the floor, we don't know what it's going to look like. Literally, things are coming in and out of each of those pieces as we speak. So the goal is to make sure we get those the highway trust fund funded, fund the federal government. The government shutdowns are never good, and it seems that the funding should have been started 9 months ago. Because you all do that at the city and the county level, and it seems like waiting to the last minute. Historically, Congress has already done that, and that doesn't work out well normally. So I think we can do better, and that's what my job is to help Congress become more effective and efficient as we move forward. So, Mayor, again, thanks for asking me to councilors. It's great to be here with you, and you took time out of your day to be here. For those of you who don't know, I just came from the Knife River, two areas of Knife River where the Steelhead Association is working with the Minnesota DNR investing in some of those washout areas. It's phenomenal what they're doing with the conservation, and that's to see the investments there. I know that they're looking to have more investments. They have some people that are maybe not on board down in St. Paul. I said, you have to bring them up to show the projects and the investments, to see what you're doing. And when they see that, the investment is easier made when you see a completed project by people that are passionate and are experts in their respective areas. So, and with that, I know that the tall ships there issue has come forward. Can before we talk about the wastewater treatment and some of the potentials, can you tell me where the tall ships conversation is today?
Well, first of all, I should probably turn this on, but Congressman Stauber, thanks for coming down and spending some time with us. Thanks to everybody here in the crowd. We always appreciate participation, so thanks guys for being here. Tall ships is something that's kind of in fluid motion right now. And I know there's some discussions tomorrow with the acting city administrator to kind of talk through that and figure out all the details of that. I know that's happened, tall ships has happened in Duluth before, Bayfield, some different areas. Excuse me. So that's kind of exciting. The details are being worked out right now. And some of the issues that we're dealing with, by the way, thank you to you and your staff, extremely responsive. And that's really appreciated, from elected officials when we hear back. And I think when the Army Corps was contacted in regards to use of our facility, I think they got back and literally that day.
Yeah.
Many calls have gone unheeded. So that's called representation, and we appreciate that. But yeah, all the details are still kind of fluid and still being worked out. The plan is next summer at some point to have that event. So
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you mentioned the staff. Constituent services is the #1 priority. We built a really good relationship with the Corps and the U.S. Forest Service and the USDA, which is important in investment in northern Minnesota, and we're going to continue that too. It's really important. Building those relationships with MnDOT, when the silos come down, you can do a lot of work. And as a county commissioner, we did that in St. Louis County, and you're doing it right up here as well. So.
Congressman, one other thing, Madam Chair, if you might indulge me, talking about the wastewater treatment plant, that was an initiative that the city has taken on, I believe it was almost 4 years ago now, and it's amazing to me how long projects take. and total all in, we'll be at 33.5 million, correct me if I'm wrong on the number. But through the efforts of multiple people, and it was truly teamwork. Everything from our staff to Minnesota legislature to the council having that vision. We're taking a plant that's been upgraded 3 times, that still has major components from the 50s in it, that all is being upgraded over the next 3 years. And the timing just so happened when you called and said, hey, there's this funding options available, that we literally were shovel ready, because the city had made a significant commitment in engineering and kind of got ahead of that. And that's one thing that I really appreciate, is this city is really moving quickly towards identifying key projects, getting them set up for wins, and then going out and finding the dollars to kind of make those things happen. We're doing the same thing, just so you know, with our capital improvement plan. You guys drove on 7th Street on the way in, which is the street that Castle Danger Brewery is located on. You'll notice that there's a lot of road construction on the side streets, and that was a $4.5 million joint collaborative effort between Lake County and the city of Two Harbors. 4 or 5 years ago, I think it must have been 5 years ago now, time flies, the council, and in full disclosure, I wasn't the mayor at the time, they said we need to have a capital improvement plan. And so it was fun, because I got to come in and beat the drum and help with this process, but it wasn't me, it was the whole community said, we want to see our infrastructure fixed. And so that's everything from replacing all the water and sewer utilities, as well as the actual, the overcoat. So, kind of fun. There's been a lot of alley projects done, there's been a lot of road projects done now. We have a capital improvement plan that every year we look at, and it's going fairly well.
Do you have any indication on how many hookups or help you'd be able to give to the residents near Silver Creek area?
Well, that's a great question. You're talking for the wastewater treatment plant? Yeah, so we are working, we have an open letter out, and I think there's communication from our superintendent of the plant to basically say, we're willing to take, your waste into our plant, which is why we built this. We actually oversized it a little bit. Between
In anticipation?
In anticipation and with Castle Danger Brewery, what they're sending us as well. So it's, again, another one of those win-wins, and it's expensive. Now, you're gonna hear this probably from your staff, and we appreciate, the efforts to go at 3.5. But the fact is that when we bid this project, when we were talking to you, we thought it was gonna be a $22 million project. The bid came back at $29.5 million. And so I don't know if there's a way, and not to put you on the spot, but if we can get that number back up closer to the 10 million, that puts us in a much better situation. For a project, by the way, that's already bid and ready to go. But it has put the financial pressure on the city, because now we have to go and get more PFA money from the state, which we are trying to keep our user fees as low as possible. That's always the discussion, how do we keep those user fees low? But here's the issue, we're on Lake Superior, and Lake Superior is very dangerous. And so a lot of this project is really to make sure that nothing happens to Lake Superior. And so I think you know that, I think that's probably how you're talking about it in Washington, but that's near and dear to our hearts. And so maybe there's an opportunity to take that number and try to move it up a little bit. And if anybody can do it, I know the guy that can score a winning goal.
That's well, here's the fact of the matter is, Mayor, the 10 million has been down to 3.5 after, the first committee look. And if the transportation and infrastructure committee were chaired by Sam Graves rather than Peter DeFazio, there might have been an opportunity. My job is just to hold this 3.5. That's the best that we're going to be able to do. I'm going to, at this point, we won't be able to get it up to 10 million, not this round. So my goal is just to hold the 3.5, and we're pushing hard at it. And so I understand and respect the request. I can score goals, but I can't That's a big one. That's a big lift. I do wanna talk about, Mayor, in our dealings with CDN, who donated to the pavilion. How did that help you, in the pavilion? Obviously, the request was more, but building the relations with CN, the docs here and what have you, how did that go?
They committed $50,000, and I know they were gonna give 25 at one time, and I saw the $25,000. I did not see the second piece of that. The Performing Arts Center pavilion, as you're referring to it,
Yeah.
is not completed. That has been a real struggle to get that project done. And a lot of it, again, ties back to
My dad.
you should take it. If it's your wife, you should take it.
Yeah.
A lot of that ties back to the cost of construction. Every time we go back to look at these projects, I mean, $50,000, we're thankful for that. And thank you for helping, having that
So
conversation.
you need, so the other 50 which CN had told you they would give, has anybody seen that? You've got the first 25, has anybody seen the second 25 that was committed to them at all?
I don't know if there's anybody here from Performing Arts, but I don't think, I haven't heard anything
Would
about
you
it.
confirm,
I will,
confirm
yeah.
that, because I
So-
know that David Woodruff told me personally that they were gonna be giving the city of Two Harbors $50,000 for that
Yeah.
project, so.
And thank you, and that kind of brings on the next, I'll note that, we'll find out, but, the relationship now that we have with CN and with some of their staff has really gone up well, in terms of relationship-wise. I know we have multiple staff members that are able to communicate with them. One of the frustrations in the past, and, past is the past, but it was hard to get in communication with the right person at CN. It was a little bit of a runaround, and that classic game where you call one person, you call the next
Yeah.
person, and they call the next person, they tell you to call the person you first called. So, but no, I think that, and that's an important relationship for us. You talk with the Sulaks, we constantly talk to people about how those 1,000-footers that come in and out, that is still a draw in our community, and that's still a big deal. It's obviously a big economic impact. And when I talk to CN, they tell me this is still the most efficient port. So they like coming in and out of here because it's really, really efficient, and our guys do a great job. So it's still a very important part of our community, and something that's near and dear to us. So, yeah.
That's wonderful news, and to have that relationship and then to have CN make that comment, that's kudos to you, the workers, and the city, because you have to work together. So to the councilors, do you have any questions, comments, any things that you want to talk about, maybe getting deeper on the wastewater? But as you're thinking about that, I will say that your city attorney and I have known each other Steve and I have known each other for 45 years. And before you even brought this project to my attention, he did, because I was a member of the board there. And on our breaks and sidebars, he pushed us in a heavily way, and I know that Steve is probably transitioning out and gratefully so. But I can say that he has done tremendous job behind the scenes, because I think about this project before you went to this board as well. So, it's important to continue to push it. And we will. So, councilors, any questions, comments?
Not this time, I don't think.
Wait there. Sorry.
Well, I guess I would like to express my appreciation. We recently received funding through GLI to install a stormwater treatment facility right between us and the lake, Ag Bay. That grant is working its way through the signatures right now, but it's for $750,000.
I will, so there's a caucus that I'm part of in Washington DC, Great Lakes, caucus chaired by Mercy Captain, the Democratic calling in Ohio. These are some of the bipartisan issues that we can get done in our nation's capital. And when we get together as a caucus, we talk about the investment into the Great Lakes. We also talk about the invasive species. In Ohio, there's one lock that is holding some invasive species from coming into the Great Lakes. I think we have to be very vigilant on that. So that investment in that second lock and the technology that they're trying to, implement this stuff, it's extremely important, just like what the Steel Association is doing. And we think it's a small part, it's a big part for our natural resources. So the Great Lakes Caucus, we pushed the Trump administration, we pushed the Biden administration. We need that funding. Do not delay and do not reduce it. And so, Derek, that's the push from those of us, and we have to stay together as Great Lakes Caucus, because you're getting the Port of Los Angeles and New Orleans, and they're all fighting for that. And so when we get together, it's a strong voice. It's literally the Midwest voice, from Minnesota, Wisconsin, all the way to New York. So, we're going to continue to push for increased funding. It's that important.
Congressman Stauber, we get together as a council once a year and we set kind of our strategic priorities. And I know you're hearing this from a lot of constituents, but housing has become a big issue. And there's no simple answer. I get pushed a lot as a mayor about certain things. And it reminds me of kind of the job issue this country faces right now. A lot of people want to point at one thing, but when you really dig in, you see a lot of things that have happened that's creating this lack of jobs. And the same thing with housing is, I talk to people and they want to see newer housing inventory. And I talk to people and they say it's a short-term housing issue. And, we have too much rental and long-term, and, it goes on and on and on. At the end of the day, that's our number one priority as a city. And so what we've done, just to kind of make you aware, is we've started the process of redoing a housing study. We did one 4 years ago, but we're doing one again. The housing study 4 years ago showed a desperate need. 25 years ago, when I moved into this community, there was a desperate need.
Yeah.
And we are finally, I think, really serious about the utilities it's going to take, because a lot of this is putting utility in, making sure that what we do is done right. Derek can talk to you about the wetland aspects and making sure we're holding back runoff and just hitting Lake Superior super fast. And maybe capture a little more of that. But that's a really critical priority. So we've done the housing study, we've invested in another one that's going to be done shortly. We've also done some wetland studies in some of the places, but I gotta believe you're hearing about housing crisis, is that what I'm referring to it as.
Yeah, it's been around since it's on the county board of commissions as well. One of the successful places we're finding is that public-private partnership in the housing development. And each city has the ability to abate their taxes to entice investors to come up to Harper's Only County. But I will say that one of the social determinants of health is stable housing. As a police officer in Duluth, I saw a number of families moving 3 times in 1 year. Those kids have gone to 3 different schools. The stability is just not there, and that helps with the stability. And I think it's important that those developers, if you could find those developers and work with them. There's also Habitat for Humanity, the number of housing that allows for, in particular, Habitat for Humanity. There's some input from that resident. We were up in Ely for an open house, and this young gal, the 3 she was so proud of what she did to get that house ready, and the kids were saying to me, this is their bedroom. They've never had that. And so those might be small ones, but they're huge wins. There's huge wins for that family and the community. So, from my history as a police officer, the stable housing is extremely important for these kids. Give them the opportunity. That's one way you can do it there is allow that investment to happen. But you'll see the public-private investment is extremely important on those. And like you're competing with every other city in northeastern Minnesota on getting investments to come. So then there's an opportunity to reach out to those people that have invested into housing, and you have an opportunity to do that. And I've said that to every council that I've spoken to. That public-private investment, what can you do to entice, because it's competitive out there. It's very competitive.
And Congressman, I'm just gonna jump off of that is that as we look at our 2017 Maxfield housing study, what we're finding is our community is aging. So, you know, we have that, I think the majority of the demographics is over 60. So we're looking for, and I always use myself as an example, but two-story house, 3 bedrooms, 2 ready-to-retire folks, looking for that, I wanna stay in Two Harbors, but looking for that one level, don't know steps. But now I have this super nice family home that I would like, you know,
Yeah.
to see somebody else move into. So that's kind of where the council is going is, you know, how do we help those people that want to get out of that 2-story house and move into something smaller and then open up that older housing for families and stuff. So I think there's kind of a way to do that, but it's something that we're kind of trying to look at. We're very fortunate in Two Harbors, and I'm just gonna show off a little bit because I work for Lakeview Hospital and we've just finished a huge project to combine the hospital and the clinic into one facility. I don't know if you've been able to see it, but now we're working on phase 2 where we're gonna bring in a surgical suite. So as Lakeview responds to what's needed in the area, I need to remember that Lakeview Hospital is the only hospital between here and Grand Marais. So, you know, there's a huge demographics of people that are coming and getting their health care here as well. So just things to keep in mind as we're moving through this housing thing.
And to compliment Robin, you and your staff, and all the people that work there, it's just recognized. I talk to people in Duluth that now are coming up here because they actually are able to get the care that they're looking for. They do an awesome job. So I put that plug in.
Well, I
You on the board still, Janelle? Janelle chairs the board of the hospital, so she can give you lots more information than I can as just an employee, but you know, it's great to see things happening and you know, if it hadn't been for COVID, I think that there would be a lot more activity going on in the hospital for our seniors and group activities and health-related things for our citizens.
Yeah, Janelle, I do wanna talk to you about that, but I will say that you made a really good comment. You talked about for those seniors that want to leave their house and go to that single level, like my parents in their late 80s, left the family home, single level, safer for them, everything else. And it is really important that it's, if they want to, we don't wanna force them out, because some people are happy in their home that they've lived for a lot of years. So I appreciate you recognizing that fact, because there's that pull factor within the families.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so by your statement, I totally agree with it. Well, let's talk about the hospitals. The rural hospitals are extremely important, and one of the ways that we need to keep you competitive and excelling is rural broadband. Telehealth, telemedicine is here to stay.
Yes.
And we need to make sure that Medicare and Medicaid pay for those, that service rightfully. Right now, we're working on the correct payment because early on, they weren't paying out as if it was an office visit. So all the hospitals, especially rural hospitals, have seen the negative effects of that. So what we want to do is make sure that if it's the doctor's opinion that telehealth, telemedicine is right for the patient, you know, by all means, and we're seeing that, especially during COVID, it's phenomenal. I think Dr. Herman made this statement, and I'm going to attribute to him. He says we want to burn the ships from how we used to do it. This is a new era with the telehealth, telemedicine. So that's the investment in broadband. And we're seeing from some the urban and metro areas, people are moving up to their cabins, building homes with what's happening in some of the bigger cities, and we just say Minneapolis for one.
Yeah.
I have heard from a number of some of our staff, they're done. The shootings and the crime, et cetera, they're done. A husband and wife that I know lived in Minneapolis, they sold their house for a loss, and they moved to Cabinet in Grand Rapids. And they toughed it out for a year until they could build that following this summer. And they're worried about their safety. So I think that that's where we have to, in rural America, be ready for that. That expansion is coming. So the wastewater treatment and the telehealth, telemedicine, and the broadband. I have supported every single bipartisan broadband piece of legislature since I've been in Congress. And I want to repeat that, every single bipartisan, because it matters. Because we're really in the rural and in the metro or urban areas, they want to get their speeds even faster before rural America even has the ability to connect. And up here, you've done a good job, years ago of investing in, but we always can get better. And that's the challenge for me, is to make sure that our district, and we're a rural district, that we don't take a back seat to some of these urban and metro areas that want to get their speeds even faster before the investment is to the rural communities. And the hospitals, which now you know how important the hospitals are to get staff. And I think once we get the potential workers up here, the doctors up here, and the quality of life, they stay. And we're seeing that leaving our bigger cities, they're not going back. And so I think that's important to recognize. So. I think, go ahead. No, I think that's really, I have my notes here, and I think that's all I had. What else you have, Aaron?
Well, one of the other initiatives, because we prioritize those, and it's near and dear to everybody's heart here, is our waterfront. We've had some discussions about that, and I just want to make you aware that we've come to realize that project management is really important, and that putting the pieces together well and then really implementing and actually following through on that is critical. But I think what you're going to be seeing more and more here in the near future is those plans, because what we've also really come to understand is that that's an elephant, and it's a really big thing. It's really important for our community. It's kind of the heart of our community. And so we want to make sure that when we're putting that together, we understand and we're taking small bites, but that we're actually moving small things forward. And interestingly enough, the wastewater treatment plant is actually part of that, because as we redo the wastewater treatment plant, we're also aesthetically making that look very nice. So as you go through that area, it'll look, like it's, in tune with the rest of the waterfront. Is things like trying to remove, barbed wire looking fences and things like that on our waterfront are what initiatives we're taking. But I just want to make you aware that there's a lot going on there, and I don't think there's any land issues with the federal government or anything like that. Obviously, the Army Corps, we talked about them earlier, they've been really good partners. But I know we have work that we have to do with Minnesota DNR and some other things. But I'm sure we'll be knocking on your door, when that time is, when there's a need.
Yes, and the door will certainly be open for those discussions and help. One of the things I said earlier, and I want to stress it, when you take those barriers down between the agencies, you can move mountains. And your community projects, when they're supported by the council and those industry leaders and the community, they're looked at more favorably when the decision is made by those selected officials on where the money's going to go. The one-off projects that we've seen in the past, they're not necessarily going to get that look. When you have, as I stated, the major stakeholders all pushing in the same direction. Because you can have one person or one group that opposed to it, and you can throw things out. Because it's easier to go to XYZ community where everybody agrees until you fix that, or whatever the issue is. So when you are working together and you're trying to find that sweet spot for Two Harbors and Lake County, when you find that, and those projects are put forward, those elected officials, we see that. We see the wastewater treatment and how important it is that facility. We see it. And so do the officials. And so I want to continue to push for that. My goal is to do whatever is needed to get that in the funding. So. Awesome. Any questions?
No, thank you. Actually, I'm here. I was glad that the mayor brought up the waterfront, because that is something that has been dear to me. One of the things that I ran on. So it's a front yard, and I would like to have it just be something really, really special. and
Well, you could,
I appreciate your attention on it.
you're exactly right, it's beautiful. And you look at how long it has taken the city to deal with, on Canal Park there. Remember the warehouse, the
Oh,
industrial
yes.
sites, you remember it. You know, look at what it has done right now. And Two Harbors can do that and more. You have, as I stated earlier, the opportunities here are really endless because of the quality of life, the people, the workforce, and when you build that treatment facility, economic development will follow. That's exactly what happened to City of Hermantown. When we had the 0.5% sales tax to invest in water and sewer infrastructure, Hermantown became the fastest growing city north of the Twin Cities suburbs. And that's what brought it. Because if you look at Hermantown, it is, there's a lot of old areas. You had to be careful that the higher areas are being built and schools are being filled with school children, new schools being built. That's what happens when you invest in infrastructure. So with that being said, I just, councilors, Janelle, thanks for being here. I just want you to know, I never forget that I sat in these seats. And then I have the privilege of bringing that perspective to all my committees, my transportation, infrastructure, natural resources, and small business. And having been a small business owner for 31 years, I mean, just have that experience of sitting on those committees and making sure we have good solid legislation to move not only our district, state, but our nation forward, and that's important. So I appreciate Mayor, your leadership, and councilors, I appreciate the leadership as well.
How much time do we have? We got a couple minutes. Well, there's just one thing, I think Jenna Pember's here, and she has something that's near and dear to all of our hearts, which is
I
talking
was
about
just trying to introduce it.
accessibility.
That's all right.
So I don't know if you have a question for the Congressman, Jenna, or not, but
No,
I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you, Congressman, for coming up to Two Harbors. I am homegrown and came back. I am a public school music educator. I went to U of D in Alaska for my master's. I have the privilege of being a 2020 Bush Fellow, and so it's been a great year of learning and so much of what you have shared as far as partnerships. I've been working with Mayor Swanson, with the council, with the Lake County head engineer, with MnDOT, with DNR. It's been a flurry of getting to know all of the key players and, more importantly, sharing this message and sharing this story. So as a 2020 Bush Fellow, my vision and passion is to create an inclusive Two Harbors and North Shore, which has diminished physical and attitudinal barriers. I have 3 goals that I've set out in not just my fellowship, but in my life here on the shore. And so it is to help with our infrastructure. This summer I volunteered and scattered myself throughout the city with the help of Councilwoman Redwald, as many others, to look at our 17 miles of sidewalk. And I was super excited because I got a Firefly, which is a 3rd wheel attachment, so I could be independent around our town and I could go and be places. And after doing the assessment, I went, wow, this is really sad to me. Because in our 17 miles of sidewalk, there's maybe a total of 1 to 2 that is up to ADA code, and that is safe for even ambulatory people to be on. So in the infrastructure, I really am going to be championing the fact that not only do we bring things up to code, but that we live out the spirit of the ADA. So it's not just about having a checklist. It's not about making sure this ramp is a 1 to 12. If I, as a wheelchair person who need to get up to the council area, I can't get there, that's failed me. So it's not just about the checklist, it's about the spirit of it. One of the great things that I've discovered with my Firefly this summer is the Gitchigami Trail. And so as we travel up to the Gunflint today, I really encourage you to look out those windows and see out the trail that I, as a wheelchair user, can be a part of, but then also please look at the parts that are not there. So for instance, a great economic impact and health impact of Two Harbors would be the trail going from Two Harbors to Gooseberry, because Gooseberry to Split Rock already exists. And then also from Silver Bay to Tettagooch, because Tettagooch is an amazing state park with accessible picnic tables and bathrooms and all the things that people that have those needs look for. And that's the other part that I hope to help is that promoting ourselves. There are great, amazing pockets of accessibility for everybody that can come and see the beauty of our creation and nature up here. but unfortunately they don't know about it, or they don't know ways that they can access it. So in working with Gitche Graham Nature Trail Association, with MnDOT, and with DNR, my hope is that all of the maps will have those indicators, that our state websites would be more accessible to share those attributes that we've invested in. So now if we've made those investments and are continuing to make those investments, how do we bring people here? The other part of my 3 steps is to also work with our lodging and tourism industry. Again, if people don't know what accessibility options people have, whether it is in hotels, whether it is in verbos, whether it is in eventually being able to come and live here. I love all the topics you've talked today, you've kind of hit all my checklists, because accessible and affordable housing is a huge issue. So I really love that word accessible to also be in there. Because many times we focus on students with disabilities and we focus on elderly with disabilities, but as me as a middle-aged person who has a foot in both the chair and the able-bodied world, it is a very tricky place to be, and it shouldn't be that way in 2021 when ADA has been around for 31 years. So I just thank you for your continued support for all of that, and in the medical world, I guess I would ask that if you can put the dental world on your radar. Many of our constituents up here do not go to dental because they are an MA. And as of right now, we have 1 provider in West Duluth that takes at least 6 to 12 months to get an appointment with. We have 1 provider up in Cook County who actually has a ramp on her building, which is where I go. And then the next closest place is Deer River. So that's really unacceptable when it comes to the dental health of our constituents and who will or won't take MA. And so that's kind of my next subdivision of research for me as I'm interviewing some of the local dentists and such, because we have great buildings that are being built in our town, which is awesome, and I was super excited because now they'll be wheelchair accessible, so I'm not bumped up the stairs to go to my dental appointments. But they don't accept the insurance of which many of us have. And so I know there's new legislation coming through that's bringing up the reimbursement rate from a 1983 and 1987 reimbursement rate. But it's still not enough to get the coverage and the support of our local businesses and the medical help that people in wheelchairs or that have medical conditions truly need.
As you're talking and writing notes, and one of the things that is for me, it's very, very important and near and dear to my heart. As you're aware, I'm a specialty shelter. For you, you should be able to go in any city across this nation and be in traverse anywhere. And if you look at, and I'm just using this one as an example, when we redid or modified our intersections, you'll look, every one is you're able to move about without off the curb. And some people, don't even think about this, but if you're on the sidewalk and you have a chunk of sidewalk up like that, I can't imagine, and that is unacceptable. You bring up some great points. You're an expert, and my staff and I, as we go through our committee work, I hope that if we ever ask you to come and testify, that you do, because I think you're excellent at it. You're passionate about it, rightfully so, and you can help us change the ADA, bring it back to where it needs to be, and be a part of our community. So I really appreciate your comments. Really, I really thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I would just, the quote that sticks with me in my research is nothing for us without us. And sometimes I think so many times there's such good intent, but then it becomes the add-on, and then it becomes more expensive of an investment to fix it after it's done. So I'd really encourage and ask for, that opportunity. I would love to share my story however it can help and make change, but also just that as we work together, continue to work together, just that as policy moves forward, there's nothing for us without us.
Thank you for your comments. I agree wholeheartedly.
Thank you.
I think, Mayor, that's it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, Congressman Stauber, thank you for taking some time. I know it didn't work out in the past, but again, just want to say thank you for the responsiveness and of your staff and willingness to talk about these issues. We're really on on a mission. We have vision, we have purpose, and we're focusing in and trying to get that accomplished. So thanks for being part of that team.
Unlimited potential, you're right, you're here for that reason, unlimited potential, and we're here to help in any way, shape, or form. So, thank you very much, everyone, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Yeah, it's just here to do a quick adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.